What is up, everyone? What is up? Sorry I didn't get on stream yesterday. Was a little bit under the weather. Doing a little bit better today. So, what's everyone up to on this Thursday? We got some new toys. Plenty of them. These are the things I was talking about that we're probably gonna set up for my dogs when I take them hiking and stuff. And then I also got these little ESP32 boards in. These are gonna be for some potential Wi-Fi war driving stuff I'm gonna be building with them. This is the little T-dongle C5. So what I was gonna see about doing with this guy was, it's got a little screen there, but plugging it in, seeing what I can do with it on the go, just to experiment at least in a short range capacity, because I don't know if there's really an antenna hookup that I can, actually, yeah, there looks like there's a couple of antenna hookups, but I'd have to crack open this casing, but that's more just for, okay, I'm going to experiment and quickly do that. This one over here is basically the exact same thing. That's going to fit into a format with another breakout board that I have coming in. And then eventually I'll get around to working on a potential cluster of ESP32 or whatever other devices, so that I can, if I can open this damn bag, jeez, so that I can capture across multiple channels and things like that. I was also looking at what it would take to possibly build my own signal capture, possible triangulation kit, but it may end up being cheaper just to buy some of the more expensive ones too, so there you go. Have I ever created any virus? No, but I've known some people that have probably been around the block long enough that they probably have, but, they're patient zero. That's a joke. No, I haven't really done any virus creation. I'm not that on that side of things. So this little ESP32 over here, for the new little war driving case that I have coming in, that'll probably be here in a week or two. It's got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built into this little guy over here, but essentially it's gonna just plug right in to a breakout board that is going to give it a lot more capability. So we'll see what happens with this guy over here. But my understanding is that these are both C5, so both of these are just as capable of each other. This one just has a screen and is completely USB powered. This one is more of the standalone board, but I also do have some SBCs over here that I've been dying to give low power purposes for. So like we have the Milk 5 boards over here. These are RISC-V CPUs. These are a little bit different. I think actually the ESP32 C5s maybe RISC-V. I could be completely mistaken though. But yeah, so we have these ones over here, and then they have the little mini boards over here. Either way, we can probably do something with those so I can get them off my desk. Have you, oh yeah, my ESP32 has been having Wi-Fi server connection issues. Yeah, that'll happen as you get older, Sometimes we end up needing to, get those blue pills to get, I'm kidding. I'm just in a stupid mood tonight, ignore me. Is it possible to enter IT with that degree in this 2026? I can't speak directly to the complete entry-level class right now, because the issue is a lot of the things that I learned and started in this industry have changed quite a bit. Like, we didn't have ATS systems and all that. I think it's still very possible. It's just getting tougher. The best entryway for a lot of people that want to get in right now in, with it being 2026 and AI and ATS systems and all that, look around for smaller IT companies. Pretty much all the MSPs that I've worked for were maybe at most a dozen people were in the entire company. They were small shops where we would service, small businesses of anywhere from, maybe one or two seats to, I think the largest client I ever serviced was 400 before I got into like full on enterprise. So smaller companies is generally where you want to look at least to get an entry foot into the door. Now, will that mean that you're going to get a lot of money from those jobs? No, because it's a small business. They don't have the coffers to pay as well. But it will get you that foot in the door experience that you won't have to jump through as many hoops potentially as you would have to with the conventional ways, which requires you to have all this past experience and prior experience. Because that's how I basically did it. I didn't go through big companies. The first time I worked for a large company was like 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there, many years into my entire IT career, if we exclude the Staples Easy Tech experience, because that's more of a retail store kind of situation of, oh, you can do retail? Oh, and you can actually do some computer stuff. Okay, you can go over there and make like $1 an hour more. So I wouldn't even say that's even necessarily worth counting, but I guess overall into the job journey that I had, it did play a role, at least for the MSP, but I digress. You get my point. Is it possible to go into a company that will help with education? Absolutely. There are plenty of companies out there. I know this was the case many years ago. I don't know if this is still the case. I was told that a lot of companies, that start out with, entry-level jobs, like I think even one of my friends said, like McDonald's, I think was the one they went through, will even give them some kind of education incentives. Are they, maybe necessarily all the rage in terms of, like, that they offer them? Not necessarily, but there are companies that will offer it at various levels. Some will offer it in reimbursements as so far as college expenses and, tuition reimbursement. Some will do it as, will reimburse for, going to certs and, pay for your exam fees, things like that. So many companies are doing that. It is still an evolving process in the industry as a whole, but I've had companies that paid for my CISSP certification. I've had companies that paid in part for, little bits of college and things like that, but yeah. Running a script that makes circular backups, HDD, NVMe, HDD original, such. I don't know why you would want to be doing that specifically unless I'm misunderstanding something. I spent 15 years in MSP of different sizes, from 12 people up to 500 plus seat companies. Yep, that'll happen in MSPs. You think of the hypervisor de novo bypass, there was a discussion lately about it. I haven't really looked too much into it. Yeah, I agree. MSPs are a great place to learn. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't stay at MSPs. They're a great place to learn because you get to wear so many different individual hats. You get a lot of experience in different fields and can figure where you want to actually specialize in on. But you will not make that much money, and you are pulled in a lot more directions than you would like. Whereas when you work in an enterprise, you get to work on something and continuously build on that something. I used to write pointers for AOL chat rooms. Jeez. That's dating yourself. Do you tend to configure Unix utils or keep them vanilla so you're comfortable when you SSH into a random server? Generally can keep them vanilla except for the few twists and tools that I've made for my specific niche needs that are usually on GitHub. Use Tailscale, so any tips? No, I don't use Tailscale. I use TwinGate for my remote access. I have a couple of Raspberry Pi 4 nodes that are in the network rack that allow all access into the network. Because the way that I have everything architected from pfSense to the Unify switches to the TwinGate is it's zero trusted. So even when you access in remotely through the nodes, there's only certain networks that will let you laterally move through. And part of those connections are based on role-based access controls that are pushed through SCIM with my identity provider. So, yeah. Do you think AI is bubble? I think it is. I don't think like it's a bubble as in it'll disappear. I think it's a bubble and as in right now people are overselling the capabilities with the AI and everything that they think is going to happen. There's going to be a reality check for them, and thank you for the follow, by the way. Yeah, so sorry if I sound a little stuffed. I'm waiting for my allergy pill to, you know, kick in. And some caffeine to also kick in. Catching the stream because of the Canvas ransom. Still looking for a job too. What Canvas ransom? And yeah, good luck on the job role. I can't find any entry-level IT roles. Is the market cooked or I'm just not looking hard? Or you're probably a wording there. I think what you're saying is you're not looking hard enough. So entry-level and general roles right now, the market as a whole is really effed, but I will tell you that a lot of small businesses don't tend to actually apply on like Indeed or LinkedIn, things like that, or at least their search results tend to be pushed to the bottom, unfortunately due to the nature of, well, you're paying to get more exposure. But with that being said, if you do Google searches for jobs in your area, as well as you localize the searches a little bit better, very often you'll actually end up finding there's a lot of companies that on their own career pages or, you know, maybe like in less conventional places, like sometimes I'll find them in like Facebook jobs or wherever. Like I've even seen legitimate jobs being in Craigslist or things like that for more local companies. Now, the bigger companies may be struggling to justify hiring right now, and generally what I notice is the best hiring months are the first 2 quarters of the year, with the first quarter being the largest. But yeah, so it's an effed market for entry level, to be sure, but look at the entry level. It's a mix of the market is effed, and you also have to like really dig into the market and search, because I remember my first jobs when I was going into the MSP world were from tech recruiters. So tech recruiters can be useful, but I've also heard mixed things over the past few years when it comes to a lot of tech recruiters that I used to recommend. So I'm not gonna give any particular name. But go look around there. The one word of caution that I will give you is make sure they are relatively local to you, because if you happen to be getting, like, I'm not trying to be, you know, prejudiced against anybody, but if you get what generally is some Indian that is in India trying to place you in a job in the USA, you're generally not going to have good results, because my personal experiences I've had with those people is you'll be like, hey, we have this job and it's like in a city that's 2 or 3 hours away from you, and they don't realize like you are not there. Or you will get like it's in the clear other part of the country, or you'll never actually, the likelihood you actually will get placed by them is very low. So make sure the firm that you deal with is relatively local. At least I would say within a city or 2 away from you. Like if you generally want to be able to somewhat be able to drive and possibly have coffee or lunch with this recruiter if possible. But it was recruiters. It was Googling local companies that were, doing IT, MSP work and applying to all of them. And that's how I ended up with my first MSP jobs between those two. They want mid-level strength people for entry-level jobs. Well, yeah, they definitely do. And that's a problem that they're going to have. In fact, on the speech that I have for an upcoming conference, that is one of the points that I'm going to be talking about there. So, yeah. I'll eventually, once I finish that speech, I'm doing it at sometime in June. I'm doing that. I will work on getting that recorded back in YouTube. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy about something upstairs, but yes, I'll take care of it. I'm like 7 to 8 years help desk, but we do tier 3 and I have access to all security stuff. That's weird. That's a little bit too much access, if I'm understanding correctly. I use ArchBTW meme is dead. No, it is far from dead. Alright, so what is this that Kara sent me? Kara put up structure hacker claims data theft from 8,800 schools and universities. And structure as a cloud-based. Oh, that's fun. 280 million records for students, teachers, and staff. See, why is it they gotta go after, colleges and educational institutions? Go after the loan officers of said institutions. Is Georgia Tech a good school? I haven't personally gone. I have some people that say it's a good one. I mean, it's a school. At the end of the day, when it comes to this field, I could save money down there. I could eat, get money in the daytime, even kinda what else? Wake up to getting bread, bitch, I do this for the streets. ADHD.
Theradish Prince just resubbed for 6 months. Yee X4.
You really just had it say yee. Thank you for the prime sub there, Radish Prince. I appreciate you. Happy hacking, buddy. I miss you. We'll have to hang out sometime. Let me see. Where were we at? Papa has taken ages to be released. Well, they're always about a month behind when the main Ubuntu gets released, because they want to get the bugs resolved. Ubuntu 2604, I think, was just released, like, what, a couple weeks ago? Net Plus, Sec Plus, Pen Test Plus what? Can't find a job. Well, here's the problem, Andy, that, oh, I see, you're saying. Yeah, the certs and all that, I mean, that's fine and dandy, but I'm going to tell you, if you're at the point where you have 7 to 8 years of help desk experience in certs, what happens more often than not, and I'm actually a victim of this too, your resume looks like shit. I'm not saying the things you have done are shit. I'm saying your resume probably looks like shit to recruiters and HR and everybody that's looking through it. So what helped me was I found a professional resume writer that will go through and then the ATS optimize it. And I actually noticed a difference between the old resume I was using to the new resume they gave me within like several weeks. complete turnaround of people calling me back, in addition to the fact that I was like submitting around the holidays. But I mean, it definitely had higher response rates with the ATS optimized resume through a professional resume writer. I'm not gonna, tell you like, go with this particular one that I recommend, and I don't know anyone that I can recommend above any other. I only have the one that I've used. It worked pretty well for me. You'll have to do some research to find out which is the best one for what you'll need, but generally speaking, what you'll probably want to do is at least have them redo your resume, have a cover letter also done by them, something that you can adjust for each job if they require or allow a cover letter. You may want to have several versions of your resume as well, depending on the positions that you're applying for. And some of them also offer the ability for getting your LinkedIn completely rewritten. You don't have to allow them access. They basically rewrite all the things, and then you would copy paste it into LinkedIn. Whether or not that is of value to you, that is your call. But I will tell you that the resume rewriting and being ATS optimized, and also the cover letter will be of huge benefit, in addition to having potentially several different versions of your resume. For example, I have a former coworker of mine that had a version of their resume for when they applied for senior roles, when they applied for architecture, and when they applied for VP/director roles. So, you have to think in that mindset as well. Many resume services allow you to get as many rewrites as you need within a year. That's the big part that I think is really, hurting a lot of people. And yes, I know people say, well, I can just use AI.ATS. No, you don't use that. The problem is AI, it's a great tool, but it's not an end-all be-all solution, and the results can be completely varied for that. You want an actual human overseeing that. Because there's certain things that it will have input on that humans will just be objectively better at right now, and at least for the foreseeable future. Should open source your resume. I kind of do. It's called LinkedIn. No, but my format is I got too much PII on my stuff. What do you think about a cloud network engineering degree with AWS certs? I mean, all it is pieces of paper to check boxes for HR. I got an offer for the Department of Transportation today. You willing to give me some advice? Don't eat the yellow snow. It is not lemon flavored. Sorry, you left that wide open there. Did you want specific advice on your career? No, I'm sure you'll do fine. It depends on what job you're going for and everything. Creating a new app, any advice on security I must have and should have? It depends on what your app is really doing, connecting to. If it, is an executable, is it being signed, things like that. So that's a really open-ended question for a lot of different things. But yeah. I mean, at the very least, what you can do is make sure you've got like a tool like Sneak. That's Sierra November Yankee Kilo.io. India Oscar. That is a good SAST, static application security testing tool that you can hook into like GitHub for some automations to look at the security and vulnerabilities of different stuff there. GitHub has some security features as well. There's also like SonarQube you can hook into it, and a few other things, and Trivy, but it really depends on how the app is actually going to be designed. So, and that's not even getting into like the DAST side of things and all the other things you would need to test that my buddy, who is a pen tester, can probably go further into than me. What brings you Pop OS? You using a System 76? No, I have my own desktop I've built. I have one of their laptops, which has Parrot OS on it, and then Pop OS is on a Tuxedo laptop, so I just like Pop OS. It's worked pretty well for me for my basic needs for several years, and now I'm just waiting for 2604 to be released so I can upgrade, because I didn't see the point in going to 2404 if 2604 was right around the corner. What are we doing to combat kernel level anti-cheats? We're just not going to use them. The problem is that a lot of people that, you know, are so... The problem is there's so many people that make excuses for kernel level anti-cheats that don't even understand just how bad it is and how useless they really are. That don't understand that in order to stop this problem as well, is that we will not use games that have kernel level anti-cheat. It's just a boycott of it. And eventually, if studios get enough people to say, I'm not doing that, enough people will stop buying it. And I think right now you have this perfect storm of the enshittification of PlayStation, the enshittification of Xbox, and the enshittification of Microsoft as a whole with Windows, that people are actually looking to Linux as an alternative. And I've heard more and more and more people actually saying, I don't give a fuck about kernel level anti-cheat. If it can't run on it, I'm not using it anymore, because a lot of people just want to use their computers and not get bothered by it. And Linux is now the experience you get of, I'm going to turn my computer on, I'm going to use it, and I don't have to worry about shit. Sneck.io. No, it's Sneak. Sierra, November, Yankee, Kilo, India, Oscar. So, SNYK.io. How do you feel about Docker and its security? I mean, I think Docker does a pretty decent job on security considering what it's trying to tackle, which is, it's more user space separation, if I remember. It's not as hard as, like, say, a full-on virtual machine, or definitely not as hard as physical isolation, but I think it's an additional step that I kind of look at as more... You need to have some kind of container, at least as a necessity these days. Just the more layers you have around things, the better. That's just how it is. You basically end up building more layers of protection, and that's how a lot of cybersecurity works, is you want to reduce the blast radius as much as possible. You want to reduce the chances of being compromised. But, you know, because a lot of times people, how do I put this? If you end up responding to attacks, it's a lot more work than it is to just prevent the work, but you also can't prevent every single attack. So Docker, I think, helps just add additional sandboxing and isolation capabilities. I like Docker. Ever thought of going for OSCP? Eventually, but I'll do it after I finish my college degree, because I'm going for my bachelor's,
now chilling in the lab.
And after I finish the CCSP, and maybe if I'm also considering masters, we'll see. Just check that box off. Lockpicking is impossible. I can never figure out the ones with a hole in a single pin. Oh, I'll have to show you. I do lockpicks all the time. It's more of a touch and feel thing. So the guy that's like saying, please work out. I do have an entire gym I've shown in prior content. I also hurt myself recently. I'm in the middle of doing some rehab on my calves. Just a whole bunch of stretches and little exercises. And I lost a whole bunch of weight already. Then a 50-meter radius domain of my domain. Every meal exactly half an inch. Every stolen inch is then added to my own. He sounds depressed as hell. I just was sick. This is why people that are online need to actually go out and touch some grass. My God, you get sick for one day and you then get over it and you're still recovering and everybody's like, dude, go to the gym. You sound depressed. No, I sound stuffed like my frickin' nose needs to get cleared with a whole bunch of horseradish. Basically just do a rail of horseradish, Scarface style. Jesus. Calves are a hard muscle to rehab. Keep up with the stretching. Yeah, it's tough. I've actually been using the, I have a belt, basically. Like a belt, but like, I was doing towels originally, but it's kind of hard to get a grip on towels. But you had the, belt where you had, like, hand loops in there, and I can stretch my leg, basically, straight up, and then, basically, I do, like, 2 sets of 4 different stretches, which is basically you have your foot like straight on and then 30 seconds of that, and then you tilt the foot one way and then the other way 30 seconds each way with your foot like 90 degree from the other while you're laying on the floor, foam roller, and then was it the knee bent stretches where you're on the wall. Yeah. So doing all of that, 2 sets each, 30 seconds a time, while I'm doing like calf raises and knee with the things where you spin your ankle around and all that, just to do some warm-ups and get it going. It's just tight more than anything. How do you feel about the... Oh, yeah, we already asked that. Currently work for Help Desk. I'm just curious about what you think about getting my CCNA. If you want to go into networking, totally. But here's the thing I'll tell you that I've noticed, honestly, from a lot of people that are in networking right now. It is a really tough field to get a job right now. It is one of the toughest things, at least in my area. I can't speak to every part of the country or the rest of the world. It is very tough right now to find networking jobs. Most of them require you to be on site for one. But I have a buddy that's been trying to move jobs and he's been looking for like several months now. He can't find anything. But that being said, I do think networking is a base foundational knowledge field that you do need to learn in IT and cyber as a whole, no matter where you go. So, yeah. What's the best piece of knowledge? What was it? Hold on. Things are jumping around. See the canvas breach going on currently? Yeah, we were reading about it. What's the best piece of knowledge you got while in IT? Don't lick batteries to check if they have charge. No, but I guess one of the best lessons that I got was never test and prod. look, everyone's gonna have their I tested and prod and got my ass bit story, but yeah, don't test and prod. The Linux on gaming good? Yeah, we do gaming on Linux stream about once a week, maybe twice. Yeah. Podman, this seems safer though, right? Doesn't run as root. Podman technically is safer, but there's a lot of things that I have seen not being developed for Podman. So, Docker is just more well known, and there are more things built for it than Podman, so it's one of those situations of, yeah, Podman's technically better, but yeah. This is why knowing blue team fundamentals when doing pen testing, offensive is a strong base for defense. Yep. Totally agree. How about network security? I mean, yeah, you gotta understand networking in general, but network security kind of falls in play with, in many cases, networking. There's this weird combination of networking and is being shoved more and more into cybersecurity. So beware of that. But then you have the SOC overlapping into the NOC, but yeah, there's a whole... There's few things changing. Jobs available a lot for cybersecurity. Will AI replace it or reduce job chances? Let me put it this way. The job market as a whole is screwed for other reasons than AI, for cybersecurity, just like everything else. But no, AI is not going to ruin cybersecurity. If anything, AI has actually increased some opportunities for cybersecurity in the past few years. I know it's opened doors for where I am in my career right now. Got my app to work with Windows with configuration files. Windows is such a hassle. Oh yeah. Developing for Windows is a bigger pain in the ass than anything else. Making apps on Linux genuinely is easier. I've made a few of my own, mostly in Python, but yeah. You can do it in Windows, but even in Windows, there's many hoops to jump through, even for Python. Alright. I've been learning backend stuff, such as API and stuff. I want to learn cybersecurity. Where should I start? Well, there's many different things that you can do with that. There's the networking side of it, which I definitely recommend starting with. In terms of application security, there's many different aspects for developing. So, like, you have the CI/CD, you have the actual application security, where depending on how you go at things, there's, just to speak at a high level, and this isn't going to be a complete cover of everything, but you know, people do things like fuzzing. They do pen testing on the applications to see how it interacts with different APIs and things like that to, you know, do the testing. So there's tools out there like I think Burp Suite is one of them, but then there's also, you know, if you're doing security for the code, there's SNCC, there's Veracode, there's, you know, on the CI/CD side, GitHub has their own security tools on top of it, like, and you can patch in like SonarQube and Trivy, and there's so many different pieces to security, just an application security, that I'm not gonna joke around and say you could literally like spend, I'd say probably months going through everything that you can do overall in that, and not just in every domain of cybersecurity. Like, you look at networking, that's a whole rabbit hole to go down at. You look at GRC with policies and everything, that's a whole rabbit to go down. You look at, you know, you just pick an axe head, basically, you'll end up going down deep into a different rabbit hole. May not have been the best analogy, but you get my point. and the basics of cybersecurity, and then focus yourself on an industry you want to get into. Pretty much. That's how it works. Alright. So, we have some content to go over. I have no idea why I totally just did a Russian accent, but I'm not apologizing. Alright, so let's see if we can get these videos that my mods and stuff wanted me to look at with y'all. So what's this we have here? Oh, this dude, what? No way. I love him. Hey. Alright, so what? This is what I hate about TikTok. It makes it
good. Which fuse is bad? Bad. Good.
You know, that actually makes complete sense, because what is a fuse except basically at its simplest a piece of conductive material that has a continuous connection that breaks when too much of a load is basically applied to it. So if it's continuous and you're going to a touch screen, which is basically just a capacitive touch, that would just be an extension of your finger at that point. So that makes sense. I never thought about that to test a good or a bad fuse. But I guess that would only apply to those types of fuses, not so much the car fuse.
No way. Fuck's sakes. I don't have a tester here, and, well, I don't use it very often, but if this works, that's pretty awesome. I wonder if it'll work with the old fuses out of the Chevelle. So it looks like we got one.
Those are the same fuses, by the way, that people historically would put 22 rounds in there. Like a 22 caliber round center fire cartridge they'd put in there because they fit perfectly, and they would give you a connection. The problem is if the fuse itself wasn't the problem, but the connection somewhere was and it would overheat it, that round could actually fire off. And they've proven that with Mythbusters. That was one of their myths they've gone into. I can't remember if they said there were reports of people that actually got injured by that, but I wouldn't be surprised. Yep, 22 LR rimfire. Oh, rimfire. I said center fire, didn't I? But, yeah.
I'm blowing 10 amp and a good 10.
Sorry, I am still recovering from being sick, so my brain is a little bit foggy.
Yeah, we'll try it. All right. Pop these out. I hate taking these things out. All right, got that one. That one's out. Pull the other. Okay, as you can see, one.
Yeah, we can see one's aft and one's good.
One's blown and one's good. They're both the same. Let's see. All right, we'll
Oh, I did say rimfire? Okay, cool.
try. Nothing with the blown one. Oh, what? No way. Look at that. It works. Fuck's sake. That's pretty cool. Who would have thought? Fuck.
Which fuse is good?
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought about that. Alright, let's see. What did you, like, spawn upon me, vampire? When she was standing there, she never took her eyes off me. The fact that he... If y'all have never gone to Hibachi, most of them are really fun like this. The fact that he's got the beat going there with the counter and everything. I didn't skip one. I just did the TikTok one there. You came in late.
Linux people just be putting that stuff on anything, even if it's completely useless. It's been over 30 years since Windows 95, but now you can finally run Linux on it. Linux on Windows might sound like an oxymoron, but a little something called Windows Subsystem for Linux, or WSL, makes it possible to run a Penguin environment on Windows 10 or 11.
Right.
Recently, those were the only versions it worked with. This Mastodon post popped up from someone going by Haley that made Windows 95 and 98 compatible with running Linux apps in a sort of symbiotic relationship between the operating systems that doesn't require the use of dual booting or virtual machines.
If you're doing this to Windows 95 or 98, as cool as that sounds, I think this is the epitome of you need to go and touch grass.
It's not exactly the most glamorous of hacks or anything. You're limited to old terminal-only versions of Linux without graphical user interfaces. But if you're running on an old UNC 3000 gateway box and really need to simultaneously sudo apt update some nonsense, then this might be the perfect upgrade for you. Linux people just be putting that stuff on.
Alright, let's see, what's next? Alright, we've got... This was from Kara. What is this? Your laptop won't charge. Ma'am, that's not a charge. Oh god, what are we gonna go through?
I work in IT. Today a lady walked in my office and said, my laptop...
Why are you whispering? Why are you whispering? Like, dude, like, if you are recording a video in a place that you need to whisper, this is probably one of those situations of you could have done this later. Unless there are, like, some really extreme circumstances, but in most cases in IT, you can wait.
Won't charge. I'm using the charger, and I plug it into the wall. I said, what charger are you using? She hands me this.
What?
I work in IT.
Joined the fan club for 2 months. Happy Thursday. Appreciate it. Shaggy. Let me see. What was it? Good night, Masha. Head out. See y'all later. See you later, Bike. Have a good night. Alright, what is this over on the TikToky side? Hold on. Copies of text. Because for some reason, Florp does not want to work with TikTok. I think it's something with their bot detection that just doesn't like that browser, but yeah. It only happens on Linux. What is this? Is this gonna make me hate you, Kara? Yes, it is! I hate you.
Nice.
They also screw in the CPU. Oh, goddamn. Like, I know these are old components, but I hope they're dead components. Oh, this would have been Kara, because they put it on. Alright. Let me jump around here. Alright, let's see. We got a video here. Car ownership is a scam. Get a non-tech video in before we get back to tech. So this is from Levi Hildebrand, who we've seen their videos a few times on the stream. Should only be about 16 minutes or so once we get rid of their sponsor spot.
It doesn't matter if you're driving an EV or a giant SUV, there has never been a more expensive time to own a vehicle. Car repairs are more expensive now.
Hate to chat and flee, but I gotta step away. Might be back later. If not, take care, everybody. See you later, Tech Chip. Happy hacking. Thanks for hanging with us. It's no longer can it run Doom. It's can it run Linux.
place and currently at the highest we've seen in years. Even car tires are more expensive now. All the while...
Hey, chat, what's the price of gas near where you are right now? Because I saw that gas was like close to $5 when I filled up the other day, and I think the Costco near me is like $3.70 now. Because I know it's gotten insane. Like, I think some people were telling me that they were getting like in, I think, $9 Canadian, and somebody was saying they were like the equivalent of like €1 80 per liter. $4.70 in New Jersey the other day. $3.86 to $4.16 in San Antonio. Jeez. You know, I don't remember prices like this being so high since the Obama and Bush years. It's ridiculous.
Prices for the cars themselves have not come down from their pandemic highs. And the only way that this whole thing has not come crashing down is because of an elaborate and incredibly sketchy auto financing racket that is getting buyers suckered into an endless debt loop just to keep them driving. But it's
And you know what's blowing my mind when it comes to the whole car ownership and how expensive cars are? Like you said, like, pandemic is when they shot up to their peaks and they haven't come down. But I keep hearing stories of, like, dealers having lots filled with cars that they just need to get rid of. How are both things true at the same time? That cars are way too expensive, but, you know... Get the point. It's just, yeah.
Starting to pile
$9 USD. Where the hell are you, vampire?
up. And economists are getting a little worried. Nearly a quarter of people with car payments are paying over $1,000 a month. And
it blows my mind. Like, I hate to pause again. Sorry. Over $1,000 a month for a car. Yitz was in the same boat. We got him refied through the credit union, but his interest rate, like CarMax and what is it, Drive Time, I think it was, are two of the biggest shysters I've ever seen. Do not ever get your car financed at the dealer. What you should always do is go to your bank or preferably credit union. There's, you know, credit unions usually in many areas, at least in the United States, that can give you more favorable rates. Some for-profit or smaller banks can do better, but shop around, get pre-approved for an auto loan through them. Get them to do the terms and everything that you'll need to do. Then effectively, you just buy the car with the bank's money, because if you go to like Drive Time or CarMax, I think CarMax had him at like 16 or 18%, and then we got him refied down to like 6.5%. So yeah, just be careful of that. And then you'll have the issues like we're paying so much for cars right now, and then we're also paying so much for apartments and homes that I just feel like there's no way we can really win. It's just we're getting effed left, right, and center. Your used car actually went up on Carvana value the past few months by over 1,000. How the hell? Yeah, the new cars need to see your eyes just to drive. What? It's the microchips. They're too expensive, which inflates the price heavily. It's not necessarily the microchips as so much as they're including things they don't need to do. And if you look at like a truck, for example, like an F-150, look at the F-150 of today to like the F-150 and Ford Rangers of the 1990s. Look at the Toyota trucks of today to the Toyota trucks of the 1990s. They're not really all that much more capable than the older trucks, but they are far larger, take a lot more materials to build those. And from my understanding, part of that is because they had to find a workaround against some other U.S. regulations on gas usage to tire size or something like that. I forgot what the specifics are. Is this dude in cybersec? Yeah, I'm in cybersecurity. Car payment nowadays is what I pay for my mortgage, $1,000 in the suburbs. Yeah, I grew up being told, like, you shouldn't have to pay more than $300 or $400 a month for a car payment, and that, a loan at most should be 5 years, but preferably 3 years. Now, the average person I'm hearing is getting 5 to 7 year loans in some cases, and they're getting monthly payments of like $600 to $1,000 plus $600 to $1,000 plus.
The total of the debt that we're talking about, it's one.
You know, people who have 26% because they're 19 in the military. Well, that's a stereotype. You get in the military, you leave boot camp, you use your signing bonus to go get yourself a Dodge Charger that's overpriced, at financed at least at 15%, but somewhere probably in the 20s to 30s potentially, and then you just go irresponsible with all your money because you're a 19-year-old with money. Yeah, it happens. Doesn't matter if you're in the military or not. You're all stupid with money at 18 and 19. I was stupid with money when I was 18 and 19. Okay. What were we? Okay, yeah, we'll just continue on.
$0.66 trillion.
Thank you for the follow. Cool to hear, man. Trying to find some people that are into the same thing, but it's rare.
Level of repossession.
Yeah, it's hard to find a lot of cybersecurity content creators in online, especially in certain spaces. But I will also say that it is just as hard not just to find people in cybersecurity, but people that are not bullshitting you in cybersecurity. I cannot tell you how many times I've come across some people that I side-eye in different social media platforms, primarily on TikTok. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to stir up any drama, but you know who exactly I'm talking about. If any names come to mind, I'm not giving any names. You know, the people that are aggressively pushing courses to you. It's not that there's any one person in particular I'm thinking of. It's that this is a pattern that I see. I was aggressively holding on some money at 18 and 19. I grow up that poor. Well, usually if you've gone through the trauma of dealing with poverty and, you know, like eviction notices and stuff like that, that's a different story, okay? I understand that aspect of it. But generally speaking, the average 18 or 19-year-old is dumb with money.
And delinquencies. So things are looking bad for people, but it's also looking bad for the auto industry as a whole somehow. Because spending power isn't the only thing that's threatening to destroy.
Oh, after this video, we'll go over the mesh-tastic devices that I got. I didn't even show those.
The US auto market right now. We've also seen a Chinese EV revolution that is flooding the global market with high-quality, affordable EVs.
You know I want my goddamn motherfucking Chinese EV. Because I do want to get an EV car for my next car in the next few years. But I do not want a Tesla. But I do want an EV. Something sensible. Something that I can get at least all four-wheel drive. So if I need to go a little bit off-roading trails, things like that. Something that I can use for a little utility. So preferably pickup or at least SUV. But yeah, needs to be able to haul tools, lumber, things like that. Where, man, it's pretty sad. Most are posers, and it's pretty sad. Uncensored LLM has been my go-to for any good info. I run my own LLMs locally. You can get around a lot of guardrails there and obliterate many things. People are porting a lot of cars from China now. They don't care if it's illegal. See, it's not the issue that I don't care about importing the cars or anything. My issue has been, great, I've imported the car. How am I going to maintain said car? Like, let's just throw it out there. Okay, brakes, things like that, you might be able to find those pieces. Cool. What about all the niche other pieces that may have to be serviced?
That US markets just can't compete with. We have seen some attempts from domestic automakers to meet this demand for more.
Yep, the Slade Auto. That's one of the cars I was looking at.
Play way out. But here are some things we know for sure. We're definitely not gonna get better public transit. We're not gonna get more walkable cities. But whatever comes out of this is going to massively disrupt what car ownership looks like in America. This video is sponsored by Clean My Mac. So I said off the top that this is categorically one of the worst times to be car dependent. Yes, gas prices are on everyone's mind right now.
Yep.
Pretty much every aspect
I just want them to get rid of the chicken tax. Want my damn Hilux. Oh, you mean the Hilux? Yeah, the Hilux is one of the best trucks ever.
A long time.
Anyway, take care, bud. I'll be sure to hop in your streams here and there. But it's 3 a.m. here. So time to head to bed. Good night, buddy. Good night. Happy hacking. Thanks for coming by and following.
The whole reason
Get some rest.
why we are stuck in this loop is because car culture and the oil and gas industry has sold us the lie that our personal worth and value is manifested in the car that we drive. You got
No, really? You're telling me the people that want us to spend money marketed a whole bunch of propaganda that our identity and our worth and value as a person is tied to the amount of money on the thing that we drive to get us from A to B, when most people use their car to go to work, get their groceries, and that's it. And maybe go out for a little bit of fun. Like, seriously, most people that are going out there with a Lamborghini never track it. Most people that have cars that have 4x4 don't even bring it near even a gravel trail. Not that you need 4x4 or even all-wheel drive for a gravel trail. My point being, you're not even like touching bare minimums there. I've seen so many modified Jeeps that cost so much more than people's, sensibly should be spending on a car for a mall crawler that they keep polished up and put add-ons and upgrades and a color scheme on there that makes us all know you never rock that thing in a desert. You never mud bog it, and you never rock crawl on it. The most you may ever do is crawl over a frickin' concrete curb thing over the little parking block ballard thing over at the parking lots of the malls that you hang by to put all your Chanel or whatever fancy, designer shit goes in your trunk. You heard me rant enough about this shit for a while, though.
look good to feel good, and the best way to look good is to drive a fancy car. There is literally a whole "the car is the fit" trend on TikTok. This is very popular. And look, we've known for a long time that driving is one of the most dangerous and expensive and stressful ways to get around, but vehicle ownership has...
It's only dangerous because of all the other people on the road that we know that shouldn't be driving. Like, my God, what was it? Yesterday, I was coming home from work, almost got into 2 accidents because of other people. Not like, oh, they just jumped out. No, like, I mean, one guy literally from the other side of the road made a beeline straight out of a gas station, made a wide ass, turn into, the traffic lane. And I was about to turn left, to the point the car, he almost hit a car. They had to swerve around. That car swerved, almost hit me. And I'm basically in the left-hand turn lane at the last minute, pulling over more to the right outside and saw nobody behind me. So I luckily avoided that. There was another time where somebody decided, hey, I need to go 3 lanes over to the right to get on the exit right now, and cut off like 2 different cars. And I was one of those cars. So, yeah, it's every other freaking person.
Become so firmly entrenched in the culture of North American identities that people don't even question the absurd lengths that we are willing to go to maintain this lifestyle. Until...
Basically, my bitch about people who get 1,000cc sport bikes, way more capabilities than what you would use it for. Yeah.
Now, up until the pandemic, car ownership was seen as an expensive but sort of necessary evil for most people living in this part of the world. But during the pandemic, we saw the auto industry explode due to supply chain issues and increased demand, and things really have never gone back to normal. New and used car prices jumped through the roof, and the industry was making more money than it had ever made in years. But the worst part is that around the same time that prices were going up, quality started going down.
Yep.
JD Power studies sources an increase in tech and the multitude of engine options as some explanation for this quality decrease, but also major auto industry consolidations have just removed a lot of the incentive for these companies to keep improving. More Perfect Union made a great YouTube video about how Stellantis production got so sketchy during the pandemic, all while selling cars well into the 6 digits. And
Stellantis is the reason why I'm no longer a Jeep lover. I love Jeep. Do not get me wrong. They're one of my favorite brands. I drove 2 Jeeps, you know, but I will not get a new Jeep anymore. If I do get a new Jeep, it's not a brand new Jeep. I will get a Jeep that's like a 1990s Cherokee with the inline 6, or a Wagoneer from the 80s, maybe a Grand Cherokee from like the 2000s, or, you know, a Wrangler or something like that. Stellantis really has effed a lot of the quality, and I remember one of the first issues was when I was test driving for a Jeep at the time, which I backed out of getting the Jeep. I looked at the Cherokee, and I remember this was after they did a revision, and I was looking at it because, you know, you're a Jeep guy, and you eventually like, well, eventually I'm probably going to put a lift kit on this. So I looked at it, and I realized on the regular Cherokee, I forgot which year this was, I'm like, you can't adjust, I think it was the camber, I think it was. It's one of the things that you had to properly adjust for when you do a lift. And it was a big issue from a lot of people on the Jeep forums. They're like, yeah, this the way they designed it, you can't really put a lift kit on the car at the time. And that was a big issue. And I'm like, you really are losing touch with your base audience. They used to keep the Blue Book up to shape. The Jeep performed decent in crashes. Yeah, they used to do really great. And then it just went downhill. During the Chrysler, Daimler Chrysler years, it was all right. But then the Stellantis years, it went downhill. So when Daimler Chrysler, then they got acquired by Fiat off not a mistake. And then after that, it was Stellantis.
Look, this is a bad situation. For generations, we have seen America become more and more and more car dependent, and now the entire country has made it so that there's really no other choice, and the prices are going up.
Do I like any American cars? I like the Camaro. But if I were to pick any car right now, money is no object that I would absolutely want. It's a toss-up between the Toyota 4Runner and I'd say the Nissan Skyline GTR. So, yeah.
And the reliability is going down. And the worst part is that there is a very good chance that this is going to get worse. So what is happening with all of the pressure that we see on car ownership? No, people aren't buying fewer vehicles or riding.
And if I could get them here, I'd probably get a BYD Auto 3, but I'm not getting a Tesla. F Tesla. I almost had, I had a near-death experience, like what? I'm trying to remember. There were at least 3 different near-death experiences inside of a friend of mine's Tesla.
Riding the bus more or calling for better urban infrastructure, they are going further and further into debt. A lot of this debt is happening because people are buying new cars and transferring some of that debt from their previous vehicle into the debt on their new vehicle. And maybe I need to remind you that you shouldn't upgrade your car unless you really need to, and you shouldn't upgrade your tech before you need to either.
Yeah, do you know how funny it is that right now we have the problem where, okay, so I have a dealership, of course, that, you know, the car I use, it's always been to that dealership for its entire life because I bought it off a family member. Well, So now that I have that car, I'm the, contact for that. That dealer is trying so hard to, of course, sell new cars. And they're hitting me up, and it's funny because their pitch is, hey, yeah, we can get you in a new car that's going to, be the same payment as what you have right now. Let us help you explore your options. And I'm like, you can get me in a brand new car that costs me $0 a month? They're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, my car's fully paid off. How did you not know that? And they're like, well, we just assumed. I'm like, you knew I bought the car off a family member that was in the same dealership. Like, you have that in your records. All right, let's skip the sponsor here.
We're seeing a wave of debt rising across the United States as people struggle to hold on to these depreciating assets.
And people start Klarna-ing their hot dogs on DoorDash.
But there is a multitude of factors coming together to make this as bad as possible, as we've discussed. Firstly, people are buying these higher-priced SUVs and trucks, and this is partially because auto manufacturers promote larger vehicles because they make more money on these more expensive vehicles. But it also has a ripple effect. Larger and more expensive vehicles typically have higher insurance premiums, use more gas, and are harder on tires and other parts of the vehicle that need to be maintained. But the big issue today is not necessarily that the vehicles are big and expensive, it's the way that they're being financed. Increasingly, people are rolling debt over from one vehicle into the next as they upgrade. This is called negative equity, and it's a huge factor in some of the numbers that we are seeing right now. We are at the point today where there are a third of people out there with more debt on their vehicles than they are actually worth.
This is really effed, because this was a situation Yitz was in. I think when they looked at his loan-to-value ratio, the credit union would not just approve it unless it was 130% loan-to-value or whatever, like, that is. I forgot the calculation or whatever the term that was they had. But, yeah, like, his car was technically just over it until he had to tell them, no, I have this make, this model, these features, and that feature, and then suddenly, like, brought it way down below that. And, yeah, it's really amazing how much people actually owe on their cars, in a big part due to, one, living above their means in terms of a car. You need to look at a car as, does it get you from A to B safely and reliably? That's all you really need it to do. Everything else after that point is an amenity. My car is almost old enough to drive itself, okay? It works just fine. The only thing I'm considering on it is touching up a little bit of rust, getting the brakes done, replacing the stereo, just because the Bluetooth is starting to go in and out, and hardwiring a harness for my ham radio, but that's because that's a 50-watt hookup. That's a whole other issue. But nothing there is really, like, insane. What you driving? A paid-off car.
And the only way that we're
A paid-off SUV.
keeping this whole thing afloat is by lengthening the repayment periods on these loans. Up to 7 years. 84 months, dude. That's so long for
84 months on a loan? I think Yitz's new car loan is like, what, 5 years? The term, but he's paying on the car what he used to pay on the old car, but his payment went from like $1,100 down to like $700 and something.
a car. And okay, it is
Your Blazer just got classic car status, which I'm 100% fine with. Jeez.
easy to judge, right? You know, this seems crazy. Why would anybody do this? Well, let me paint you a picture. Let's say you bring your 5-year-old Ford F-150 in for a service, but when you go to pick it up, there is a bill for $4,000 to get something fixed. But the salesperson tells you that you can avoid this repair bill if you trade in your old truck for a new one. The pitch here is that with these new 84-month-long financing periods, you're actually going to end up paying only $100 more per month, and now you'll have a brand new truck. Plus, you don't have to deal with that pesky repair bill that they told you about earlier. Now,
that is true until you consider the cost of interest over the life of the loan. So I think, can we pull up a car loan calculator here? Car loan calculator. All right, so let's see. Yeah, this should be fine. So let's say you're going to go for a car that's $50,000, 60-month loan, reasonable, interest rate, we'll call it 7%. You're going to want something higher. Let's go with a lower down payment of $3,000. And we'll not go with the trade-in value or anything. Okay. All right. So over the life of that, you'd be $930.66 for $50,000 at a 7% interest rate with a 60-month term, right? So total cost, price, interest, taxes, fees, all of that. Yeah, so it put the, the registration, $64,014, okay? So the total of your 60 payments, all that, and that's your interest. All right? Now let's bump that to an 84-month loan. You see how you've paid now $4,000 more over the life of the loan? That's how they F you. And let's look at this. So $709.36 is what you were paying for this. But if you go back to the that, you're paying $200 more per month, but you're paying less over the life of it. Now, if you're one of those, people that's out there getting just massacred on a loan payment, look at that. 15%. You're paying $1,100 there, with total interest at that point being $20,000 in that period of time. You see, that's why we freak out when there's these higher interest amounts over there. If you do 84 months at 15%, that's almost $30,000 that you're paying in interest on a $50,000 car. Do you see how you're getting bent over a barrel, and essentially how it becomes more expensive to be poor? The game's basically rigged against you, and it's really effed up that I've realized this as I've been able to grow my own portfolio, for finances and everything. The more money you have, the easier it becomes. And I don't mean it as internal lifestyle. I mean as in to make more money. It's the most effed up thing when you look at your credit score for even just realizing how many years it took me to get to 620, 630, and then you buy a home, and then finally at that point you just pay your bills on time, and before you know it, you're in the mid to high 700s. It's the most effed up game.
Now, this sounds scammy.
And this is also why, by the way, before we get back into this video, I really think that one of the biggest problems we have in American education is they don't teach us any of the life skills like this. You're not taught in many cases about compound interest and how this goes. At most, maybe when I went to school, they taught you how you are supposed to write a check, a skill I have used maybe on... Yeah, I can count it on one hand the amount of time I've basically written a check in my entire life. But they never teach you about taxes. They never teach you about finances and compound interest and mortgage payments and car payments and, what a good interest rate actually looks like and how that plays into things and all of that. But yeah.
But nowadays, it is not unheard of for dealerships to straight up turn away clients who want to pay in cash. This is sometimes called forced financing, and it happens because sellers make commissions off of these financing deals. We made a...
So this actually happened to my grandparents. No, it wasn't my grandparents. It was another one of my relatives, because a lot of my family, they're older and they do have some money. They told me the trick is, and you never tell a dealer right out front, you want to buy this car in cash. So what you do is you convince them you're going to be financing the car. You go through the whole rigmarole, test drive, talk about all the features and everything. And then when you're finally sitting down to do all the numbers and everything, then you tell them, yeah, this is all great. And they're like, so, do you have your financing set up with your bank or anything? And you just go, no, we're paying cash. And that's also why a lot of dealerships are wanting you to use their financing services, and they're going to sell you a bunch of bull. Never finance your car at the dealer. No ifs, no ands, no buts. I don't care how much of a bind you are in, how much of an emergency, go to your credit union or at least your local bank, get approved for an auto loan through your bank or credit union, or shop around. Like, I have one bank that has some loans for different things. My credit union has loans for other things. But yeah.
Whole other video about car dealerships a few years back. So if you want a more in-depth hatred of these places, you should go watch that video.
And never do a buy here, pay here. That's also a trap. Well, that's basically what I'm getting at, is never finance at the dealership. Get your financing in order at your bank of choice, bank or credit union of choice, before you actually do the shopping for the cars, to know what you can actually afford. And then from there, take your pre-approval amount basically to the dealerships that you're going through. Do you think it's a bad idea to finance hardware like a Mac Studio? In most cases, you shouldn't. Let me put it this way. In most cases, you shouldn't finance hardware, with the exception being if you have good enough credit that you can do a 0% financing, which some vendors do allow you to do. So I did this with Micro Center, for example, for the new GPU I had to get and a couple of the computers I was building before Ramageddon hit, because it was hardware I was already planning to spend in the few months after Ramageddon was beginning. This was in December of 2025, so only a few months ago. So I bought all the hardware I needed on my Micro Center card that gives you 0% financing for 6, 12, 18 months, depending on how much you spend. And I did that to carry it through and paid that off. Now, when it comes to hardware, you have to ask yourself the question, is it want versus need? Now, in my case, it was definitely a business expense, because I do use the GPU for some of my work, and I use it for content creation, and then I was going to use the old GPU for another project there, and I needed to build these computers for all of that. So you need to look at the cost of just financing the device itself. If it's, if you have to end up paying interest on it, it may be worthwhile to take that money that you would be spending per month and consider getting like a high yield savings account with something like Public, which, disclaimer, I am affiliated with them, but it's not something I really push that often. I use them personally. And then you can throw your money in there, at least so it's like at right now like 3.3%, and you're growing that money on interest over there until you're ready to buy the thing. And I do recommend putting a good sum of money, like maybe your emergency fund or something like that, in a high yield savings account, or the money you need to set aside for like taxes or something like that. Make your money make money. But yeah, essentially when it comes to hardware, you have to evaluate want versus need, and if you can, only do it when possible under 0% financing deals. And be very, very careful with how you do it. Because also know when you do those 0% financing deals, if you miss a payment, you get F'd for the entirety of the payment period usually, or the life of the loan.
We'll link it down in the description for you. But listen, I know that this is a bummer, and I'm not going to lie. This is going to be very, very bad for a lot of people. But I want to share my optimistic take here on where I think this might go and what might already be happening in response. So the reality is that even with these financing schemes that are ruining people's lives, the truth is that people really can't afford cars anymore. And while we have record numbers of people taking out these massive auto loans, we also see people not buying as many cars. And my prediction is that the auto industry is going to have to reinvent itself to stay alive. And there is a ton of pressure right now from Chinese car companies to create something better and more affordable. If you don't already know, the Chinese car company BYD is already the biggest electric car producer globally.
And I totally want a BYD.
Creating these affordable and feature-filled cars that rival their North American counterparts. Chinese EVs are now commonplace in Southeast Asia.
Bro, when I was in Portugal for Web Summit 2 years ago, I got to be in several BYD Auto 3s, and I was like, this is fucking sweet. I love this car. And it's so affordable for what you get. I was like, I would totally drive one of these in the USA if they're available. Like, it seriously is way advanced compared to, like, Teslas. Like, I don't think most Americans realize how far behind American automotive companies are compared not only to, like, there are options and even models of cars in Europe we don't have access to. In China, they have cars that we don't even have access to, that Europe has access to now. The USA is shooting ourselves in the foot, not competing against China while China's competing against us, and they're winning because Americans really have no idea how far behind we are. Americans are tripping themselves over themselves, saying Tesla is the greatest thing since sliced bread when it comes to AI and automotive and all of this stuff, until you actually experience in person these Chinese EV cars. The Xiaomi SUs, the Yang Wang Huang Yang, something like. There's a funny one that my friends and I were cracking up over the name about. But there are really great Chinese EV cars that cost less than even the cheapest cars we have here. And right now, my stream is going derp. Hooray. Come on, stream, catch up. You can do it. My stream, I think, is getting a little bit derpy. Lexus. I mean, I hear good things about Lexus. I just haven't been in them in a few years. I watch a lot of Uber videos in UK and JP, and let me tell you, USA road infrastructure isn't designed for US bikers. It's designed to sell gas, lots of gas, not care about bikes and people walking, but I am starting to see Cal and New York and New Jersey start to build better bike paths and things. Well, I think that we need to go back to the idea of making cities and towns able for you to survive without being in a car. That's, I think, a huge problem that we have is you essentially can't survive in a lot of U.S. cities without a car. Whereas when I lived in Europe, when I lived in Israel, when I was in Morocco, you can function without owning a car. Having a car in Germany is definitely beneficial because then you can get on the Autobahn and, you know, go around many different places and things like that. But you didn't... when I was in Portugal, when I lived in Germany, when I lived in Israel, and again, when I was staying with family in Morocco, I never once felt like I needed a car. And the few times that, you know, we needed a car, like in Europe and in many places in the Middle East, the average is there's one car per family. Whereas in the USA, it's generally expected there's going to be one car per person. You know, the the husband, wife, or whatever family unit combination you have there usually all have their individual cars, and then it's expected that, you know, teenagers as young as 16 should either be given or be saving up to buy their own car. That is the general expectation in American society with automotives.
Mexico, Brazil, Australia, and even right here in Canada, we're going to be getting our first round of Chinese EVs this year. And as this Chinese technology becomes more and more commonplace, a lot of people in the US are going to start to ask why the rest of the world can have these affordable high-end cars and they are stuck with poorly built, overpriced Jeeps that still rely on old dinosaur bones.
The US, you can't get a Chinese EV in the US, and I don't think we're ever gonna get them until like the country collapses. Is it like a different situation in Canada?
Dude, I wish I had just like a car channel sometimes, because I do find this very subject super interesting. This year, Canada is going to be getting 49,000 EVs, I think, from China it is. I think it's going to be one of the most disruptive things to happen to the auto industry in a very long time.
I think so too. You know that the CEO of Ford actually bought a Xiaomi SU7, SU8, I think it was, just to see what it was like with the Chinese cars and to understand what they're like, and he says that the Xiaomi car is better.
Not just because we're going to see a bunch of people in quote-unquote North America driving these Chinese EVs, because Mexico's had these cars for a long time, but it hasn't sort of had the same kind of impact, I guess. But what this means is that the two countries that America relies on to make their American cars are now both going to be consuming and using Chinese car technology, which is going to disrupt their own automotive industries. There's going to be so much pressure on the United States to either adopt or innovate out of this situation,
which they cannot do, which is just fundamentally not a
I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's been a very long time since America has innovated anything on a factory floor and not in like some kind of Silicon Valley office. It would be a blow to the American psyche if we adopted Chinese EVs, because the one thing that we hold on to is our car dominance, even if we haven't had it in decades. Even if we can abide by, you know, German cars, Korean cars, Japanese cars.
Well, I think Americans really haven't understood how much we've actually fallen behind in automotive dominance. Like, America used to be the nation that revolutionized the automobile. We didn't even invent the automobile. I think it was Mercedes-Benz that did. Electric vehicles, as I recall, were the first cars that we actually had before internal combustion engines really took off and were seen as the more economical choice for the time being. Ford was basically who popularized the assembly line and made the car affordable. But, you know, over the years we had, you know, we grew that dominance because post-World War II, we were the only nation that had manufacturing capacity because the world was essentially destroyed. And the world rebuilt and then moved on, but the USA now had the problem of, because we still were running on old infrastructure, the rest of the world had new infrastructure, new ideas, concepts, things like that, that the United States actually had to impose a bunch of regulations to stop competition, because the United States automotive market, I'd say, starting in like maybe the 60s, 70s, was really starting to lose a lot of its steam, because that's when you started seeing the import of Japanese and European cars, the Volkswagen, the Bug, you know, the Beetle. You had the Volkswagen microbus. You had the, you know, Japanese, what is it, the Toyotas, the Hondas, all of that started coming in, especially with the gas crisis coming around in the early 70s, I think it was, under Carter, if I'm not mistaken, or was that later? Anyways, there was the gas crisis that caused the a crunch on fuel prices. Not nearly as bad as I feel like. In ways, it was worse than we had before, because there were days when they had to ration gasoline, as my parents used to tell me. that drove a lot of people to go get Japanese cars because they were a lot more fuel efficient than the American cars at the time, because the 60s, 70s was still the big muscle car era when some of the most iconic cars that we saw existed, but they were some of the biggest gas guzzlers. Famously, if I recall, the gas crisis is what actually caused the DeLorean to reduce the powertrain that they were planning to have in there, which is why notoriously it only went up to 88 miles an hour. It's a supercar and the whole joke around there, if I recall correctly. But the point being is that American the automotive industry has been declining for many years, and we started imposing laws to stop the import of cars that the American automotive industry saw as threatening their dominance, at least inside of America. For example, we had the chicken import law, or whatever it is, I think it was, is the reason why we can't import a lot of the K trucks, and Japanese cars have to be like older than 25 years to import a lot of them. Or, you know, that headlights for a while, if you remember, headlights in America, they are all stationary and fixed. Now, you might think that that is a normal thing, but it is not. I remember over in Europe, they had a feature, I think it was on Mercedes, where the car, when you turned your wheel, the headlights would actually turn with the wheel. It would angle the light towards where you're turning, so it would actually be pointing the light where you're going to be going, rather than just ahead of where the car is, regardless of the direction it's heading. As I recall, that regulation stopped that safety feature from coming in the USA because they must be fixed lights. And if I recall, that regulation was to stop the import of other cars from, I think, Europe many years ago. So, like, you have all these regulations and everything that are effing over true competition, that the United States, for a nation that, you know, likes to pride themselves on being for free market and government getting out of the way and letting businesses do what they need to do, sure has a lot of businesses get their way by virtue of lobbying government to stop competition. That's just how it is.
Whatever. I think the last domino to fall,
Tucker and steerable headlights? Okay.
for people to be like, okay, we've fucking lost it, is for China to be making substantially better cars than America, which they do right now. We just haven't found out because
The way our education system has become, it will be a generation or two before we are in shape to innovate in anything. I think it's possible it can be improved a little bit more, but I think we'll have to get away from a lot of the ideas around education that have been imposed. The philosophies around education, not the content of the education, mind you, that have been done in, like, since I'd say George Bush era. Everything George Bush since then, for the majority of it, has been a detriment, not a benefit to the students. Like the No Child Left Behind thing has basically made it that we're ranking teachers based on standardized testing, so we're only teaching our kids enough to be able to pass the next test. Yeah, the American education system is really effed. We have a problem where the Gen Z and Gen Alpha, to a growing extent, actually can't... There's growing numbers that can't even read. There have been kids that literally have graduated high school and cannot read. Like, how do you get out of school, graduate high school, and that is a thing that has happened, apparently. But yeah. I'm not blaming the kids by any means. I'm saying the system has failed them.
we're not letting them drive on our roads.
The United States is where car culture was born. U.S. car companies are some of the most famous.
Love how the left was shaming anyone that didn't buy a Tesla at first and boycotting it. Well, you have to understand, many years ago, Elon Musk, even though I was never really a fan of his, was not the worst kind of guy. Then his issue was he did a major faux pas that you should not be doing when you are in business, especially at the scale of what Elon Musk is at. You don't get political. you don't get political more than is relevant to your field of business. What I mean by that is, okay, you're a car company. You deal in energy and all of that stuff. You can get involved so much as to talk about how we can get more renewable energy resources out there, how we can push more states to enable for charging, places for them, how we can, work on, connect car connectors, things like that. But nobody gives a fuck about you running a car company and your position on LGBT. Nobody gives a fuck about you being the head of a car company and talking about immigration. You see my point? That's the major faux pas that he did. You stick to your business and you stand on business. And that's where he really effed up. Like, I don't care what your politics are. It's that you got political in things you had no business being political about.
Companies on Earth, and the cultural connection there is so deep, but they get unseated by a Chinese company? Like, that's a rough look, dude. Like, there isn't really a worse company that America could lose the auto industry to, politically, in the world. Especially right now. Now, I think that the smartest thing that the United States could do in response to this new EV phenomenon is to actually move away from cars. Refocus all the industrial capacity from the auto industry into domestic transportation expansion. Imagine if they didn't need Chinese EVs in the way that they do right now, The reality is that these Chinese EVs represent a much bigger threat to places like the US because they are so car dependent. These cars will disrupt all auto manufacturers who can't compete on their level, but especially in the US, this could completely upend a generational stronghold that this industry has had for the last, 70 years, 80 years. I don't know how long we've been making cars in this part of the world for. But wouldn't it be just so great if
About 120 years, give or take.
they expanded the train lines, restructured urban areas to make them more walkable?
I have been a huge proponent of more walkable areas and train areas, and my city even used to have trams, I learned a few years ago, and they ripped all those trams out. I mean, a lot of cities should have kept their trams. Like, in San Francisco, for all their issues, that was one thing they actually got right. We need, more subways, intercity trains. Like, the ideal model is a lot of Europe. Like, when I was in Portugal, the subway train was really easy to get around to. In Germany, it was really easy. You had the intercity train, you had the intra-city train, you had the intercity trains, the regional trains, and then you had the, long-distance trains. So, your long distance trains are like getting from one side of Germany to the other, or, you're going from one country to another. Your regional ones is you're going from, this part of the country to the other part of the country. Then your intercity one is, your subways, your little trains around town, trams, things like that. It was really easy getting around when I was in Germany, when I was in Portugal, when I lived in Israel was right around the time when they were starting to get the train system online, and it was really interesting to get around and easy that way. Whereas in America, just getting someone to someplace else, if I travel, I'm just thinking out loud here. You basically have the option of airline is the best option. You can technically take a bus, but a bus is a whole problematic situation in the USA compared to, say, Europe. The buses in Europe, whole different ball game. And then the same thing with, the trains over in the USA, because, if you ever taken a subway in Chicago, my God, that place can smell rank. But yeah, You know, most cities pulled up their trams because Chevrolet bought them up, right? Pretty interesting history there. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of those companies effed it all up.
Built some public transit that didn't suck. I mean, there are very tangible ways that you could have made this
I've seen bed bugs on our bus. I try so hard not to use them. Oh yeah, like, you know, if you ever pay attention to, like, the bus, like the fabric they have on the seats, you know that funky design they have on all the seats? It's not to be artistic. It's to be very easy to hide dirt. If you don't believe me, take a massage gun to one of those seats one day. You'll never want to sit down on those again.
Less painful, and generation after generation of American government has not done that. Instead of doing all of those things, we have the Slate truck instead. It is probably the most famous of these affordable vehicles that are supposedly coming out. It's a Bezos-backed startup that's been threatened to release for a while now. It's an EV truck. It's supposed to be under $30,000, and it's maybe even supposed to come out this year, apparently. One of my favorite parts about...
Under $30,000 for the base. Once you spec it out, it actually gets pretty expensive. Like, even the options I was looking at are still, like, in the high 30s, mid 40s.
This, though, is that the Slate and BYD and all these new automotive brands are doing away with the dealership
Am I familiar with Not Just Bikes content? I don't think I am.
model of the past. Like, that was one of the first things they got rid of. They were like, oh yeah, this sucks. We should stop doing that. Like, even they acknowledged that that was a terrible idea. This is truly what people mostly want out of a vehicle.
There's no touchscreen. Instead, there's just a mount for your smartphone.
That's all I fucking need!
Want to interact anyways. I mean, who needs Apple CarPlay when you just have a place to mount your Apple CarPlay?
They don't...
Yeah, I literally just need a basic stereo, maybe like with radio capability, but I don't need like a full-on thing. Just put speaker, you know, places in there. Like, hell, even if it doesn't come with speakers, just have it pre-wired or something, and I'll put Alpines in there myself.
Care about the special advanced tech features or, you know, all of these other things that we keep being pushed.
I just need reliable. I need four-wheel drive, or at least all-wheel drive. There is a difference between the two. I need the ability to connect my phone over Bluetooth and have it be able to, you know, use its hands-free while I drive with Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, basic interface so that I can actually... you know, preferably physical buttons to adjust my AC and heat and all those different things out there. Cup holders, like, I don't really need all that much. I just need my car to frickin' run. And then put a dash cam in there and a ham radio. That's it.
Car to get them to where they need to go. We talked about this in our video about the
Yeah, cruise control, that is definitely something I've had on all my cars.
Neo and minimalist tech. It's like if companies just listened to what people want and they delivered it at a price point that seemed reasonable, it would sell like crazy. The thing about this model is that it's pretty much the opposite of the way that the auto industry is moving right now. We talked a lot about mass adoption of tech in vehicles in a video a few years ago, but it bears repeating that new cars are becoming so unbelievably complicated now that they're very hard to fix, even when you take it to a professional. Not all mechanics want to invest in the computer diagnostic technology they need to work on new car systems. And the newest of new car systems are being set up to only share information with the car dealer that built it in the first place. This is supposedly for copyright and security concerns, but it's mostly to get more control. It turns out that car repair is an incredibly competitive market, and dealerships have started to refuse to allow outside repair for certain vehicles, forcing consumers to bring their cars back to the dealership for servicing. This is all in a plan to make cars more of a subscription rather than something that you directly own. And as Lou pointed out in one of our calls, I don't think that EVs from China are going to be more repairable.
It's funny for us to like come to this conclusion about like obviously the Chinese EVs are so much better and like obviously we're moving towards the Chinese EVs. But then also in our last script on the old cars versus new cars, our whole thing was like the lack of repairability. Like, you know, when you're talking about right to repair, the conversation about the Chinese EVs doesn't really click into that. I feel like I'm kind of on two fronts on that. Like I do think that EV is good, but also it is still an issue that people can't.
You're giving on the rant about dealerships, stinking middleman. Oh yeah.
The other issue is that, like, if we don't take in the Chinese EVs, we still don't have the right to repair. We've lost that.
That's gone. That's done.
Yeah, you're fucking cooked either way.
We may see a division here where we have affordable, repairable vehicles on one hand and high-end, tech-focused products on the other. But the reality is, regardless of what happens here, the US auto market has to adjust.
It does.
Have to pick a lane and go with it. Because they're being outrun in the EV market, and they have completely neglected the more affordable end of the car spectrum, which is probably going to get taken over by some other company. We are at a very interesting point in the car ownership journey here in North America, because as people start to actually weigh out the costs of car ownership, they're going to start making different choices. Perhaps a Chinese EV is actually the thing that you need in your day-to-day life.
I want that BYD Auto 3. I'm telling you, I love that car. I would need to, test drive a Slate Auto to see if, that's kind of my feel.
Perhaps a more affordable domestic
The Tello is another one that I was looking at that looked interesting to me.
option is going to appear and take over the industry. Who knows? But regardless of what happens, we know
Installing Ubuntu server has been really important when I started my Linux journey. Nice. Happy hacking.
that change is coming. And if you want to stay up to date on all the consumer trends that are going on in our crazy world, make sure that you're subscribed and you'll see another episode right here on this channel every single week. Thank you so much. See you next time.
Okay, nice. Next video, HBX shared this. What is AVIS, Automatic Vehicle Identification System, is issuing speeding tickets?
Ticket without ever being pulled over. AVIS. You're now going to get a speeding ticket without ever being pulled over. Avis. No, I'm not talking about the car rental company.
Oh, I thought it was about car rentals.
The automated vehicle identification system. These are like those flock cameras you see at the traffic lights. Well, what they are now going to be doing is they're going to be issuing you speed tickets. Yes, even though you're at a stoplight, you're going to get a speeding ticket. Because what they're going to be doing is absolutely insane. It is now ran by an AI algorithm that says, well, if this car was at point A, and then at this time, and then at this time it was at point B, the only way it could have got there in this amount of time is if they were speeding. So we have...
Oh, I didn't mean to jump.
Speeding ticket. You were going over the speed limit.
That is such BS that they're doing it that way. We had an issue, where was it? We had the red flex red light scandal, where basically it was found that the local politicians of the city government were getting kickbacks from Red Flex, which was operating the red light cameras. Basically, I'm gonna probably oversimplify a little bit of this, but when you have your light go from yellow to red, you're supposed to have 3 seconds before it shifts to red, and then you are considered running a red light. What they did was they changed it to like 2.9 seconds or so. And a lot of politicians were getting massive kickbacks. Like, we're talking like box seats to OSU. There was even, I don't know if this is directly related, but the former mayor sold his house for like 5 to 10 times market value to some investor. The FBI investigated it. They found everything was legal, but it was one of those, like, it may have been legal on paper situations, but we know the reasons for why it was done may not have been all above board, because it's just so weird. Why would you buy a house 5 to 10 times above market value? But the point being, this is really flawed, because if it's working that way, and it's under the presumption that you must have been speeding to go from A to B, there's so many other factors. Like, there are ways, like, say, because the cameras aren't on every single corner. They may not be as Orwellian as, say, in the UK with their CCTV systems that are, rumored to be basically everywhere. You can't avoid them. In the USA, we have so many different ways to get around there that maybe you can find a shortcut through an alleyway that would have cut you some time, that between point A and B, there may not have been any other cameras, but there were several different routes that you could have taken. And if you take a back way, it ends up cutting your time by, even 5 or 10 seconds. And if you've done enough, racing games, you know that even a mere 3, 5, 10 second, lead from where you were before is a massive difference. And if you were to calculate that, you would then say that potentially, depending on how far that distance is, that even those few seconds there could translate into going a few miles per hour over the speed limit. And that the problem with that is there would be an issue of, potential corruption with that, because now we have to rely on this algorithm being completely right. But how am I, as a citizen, going to be able to challenge that in court, because I should be able to face my accuser? So is Flock going to go in there every single time and showcase how the algorithm was derived? Or are they just going to give a shortcut and basically say, well, Flock did it, and the average person's not going to fight the ticket, because that's time and or money in terms of resources they have to spend that most don't have, because as we know it, speeding tickets and traffic tickets in general don't really impact the people that are in higher classes of wealth. They impact disproportionately people on the lower ends, because if you have a speeding ticket and it's 150, 200, 250 bucks, if you're wealthy, okay, you pay the fine, no big deal. Maybe your premiums go up a little bit. But if you are on the lower end, 150, 200, 250 bucks is a lot. That is literally a utility bill there. That is, impacting you. Then when you do have to, get this ticket on the file, it could impact your insurance, and now that's money you have to, you now no longer can use on groceries and stuff every month following that. So yeah, there's a massive amount of problems when it comes to all of this stuff. I want to take a laser pointer to all those cameras. Yep. Although, laser pointers, it doesn't really work as well. I hear infrared works pretty well. There's ways to overload those CMOS sensors. Are you an OSINT enthusiast? I'm alright with it. I haven't done it much in a while, but yeah.
Over the speed limit and issue you automatically a speeding ticket without you being able to even challenge it. That's the future of the United States now. Yeah, not too happy about that. But hey, information is power, so make sure you hit that follow button and share this with everybody.
Yep. So that's where we're coming at right now. We have this video from Veritasium that Kara shared. I saw this video as well myself. May save that one for later. Trying to go through things a little bit quickly. Oh, come on. For some reason, TikTok gets a little bit derpy. I think their bot detection is just not the greatest. Okay, so what is this? Robots are coming?
No, Veer, you cannot use Neo to help you with your homework.
Why not?
Wait, isn't that the bot that, people are, remotely operating?
Because then the robot is gonna become smarter than you. Already it is all very smart. Neo, you got
Dr. Phone Season 4, Episode 30 is out. Yeah, I think that was the one I was watching earlier. I was watching Dr. Stone earlier today, as well as Will Trent. And I gotta watch NCIS and NCIS Origins. And I'm watching I was reincarnated as slime. I'm starting that series.
Go to your home.
Sad it's the last season. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm waiting for One Piece to get their dub videos of the Elbaf arc.
Yell at him.
Okay. So for number 2, you're gonna do.
What you gonna do? Go to his class when it's exam time? Yell at him right now. Do it.
Let's do your homework.
No, like you mean it. Like go do your homework.
I don't want to be mean.
No, good. Leo, we do not need you to like send me be like, go do your homework right now. Be a parent.
That's your job, though.
Why I brought a Neo into my house to tell me what my job is. I need one more troll in my life that I paid all this money for. Thank you, Neo. Do you understand sarcasm?
You carry
What's this? Google Chrome silently installs a 4 gigabyte AI model on your device without consent. At a billion device scale, the climate costs are insane. So Google Chrome installs a 4 gigabyte AI model on your device. I wrote about Anthropic silently registering a native message bridge in 7 Chromium-based browsers on every machine where Claude Desktop was installed. The pattern was install on user launch of product A, write configuration into user installs of product B, C, D, E, F, G, H without asking, reach across vendor trust boundaries, no consent dialog, no opt-out UI, reinstalls itself. Wow! This week I discovered the same pattern executed by Google. Google Chrome is reaching into users' machines and writing a 4 gigabyte on-device AI model file to disk without asking. The file is named weights.bin. It lives in opt guide on-device model. It is the weights for Gemini Nano, Google's on-device LLM. Chrome did not ask. Chrome does not surface it. If the user deletes it, Chrome re-downloads it. Wow. The legal analysis, the environmental analysis is new. At Chrome scale, the climate bill for one model push paid in atmospheric CO2 by the entire planet is between 6,000 and 60,000 tons of CO2 equivalent emissions, depending on how many devices receive the push. This is the environmental cost of one company unilaterally deciding that 2 billion will mass distribute a 4 gigabyte binary they did not request. Okay. Now, devil's advocate here. Alright, I'm just gonna play this even though I don't agree with this. Devil's advocate. We're talking about a 4 gigabyte model pushed to all devices for the Google Nano AI, right? I've been saying for a while that the trend for AI would be to run AI models locally, like I've been doing with my own local AI server. And if Google is actually leaning more towards that, where it's having Google's Gemini Nano on device, and we then shift a lot of the processing for some AI requests from everyone by default going to the cloud, whether it be through Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, you name it, and move that to our own devices to do on-premise AI processing. I'm not saying this is the, definite situation, but it could potentially reduce the environmental impacts in the long term. Sure, the initial push, you're talking 4 gigabytes per device, and we can talk about, what is it they said, 60 to 100,000 tons of CO2 emissions by doing that. But let's consider what the emissions are potentially for AI processing as it is right now, and if we can shift a lot of that to local devices, especially as devices become more capable of processing AI locally, because there's many people out there that have NVIDIA GPUs or Mac computers that have the capability to do that, even AMD GPUs and Intel Arc GPUs, and as people get their hardware replaced more and more, they're going to be on more hardware that supports it. Same to like right now, people can run virtual machines easily with the extensions so they can run a hypervisor. What is it? A Type 2 hypervisor like Hyper-V, Proxmox, things like that, I think it is, where it works directly in the hardware. Or no, is that Type 1? I always get the two confused for some reason. Type 1 versus Type 2. Yeah, Type 1 is the one that runs directly on hardware. Type 2 is the one that runs directly on top of the OS. But the point being is it possibly can... I'm not saying for sure this is the case, but it can actually make things a little bit more environmentally friendly. We're going to take a quick bio break for a second because I really have to use the bathroom. So give me about like 3-4 minutes. We'll be right back and get into the next video and stuff that my mods and stuff had wanted me to check out. So give me like 3-4 minutes. Mother Nature is yelling at me. And there's an ad about to roll anyway, so you won't be missing anything. All right, let's see. BRB. Give me about 2-3 minutes. All right. We are back. Okay, so let's see. Where were we at? Google Chrome has suddenly installed that. Got Avis. Tuck the cut the cars. Okay. Utah age verification law is targeting VPNs. This is from lawn.tv. We like his content a lot. We watch quite a few of his videos around here. But normally it's about the FCC's fight against ATSC 3.0, or the FCC going around the ATSC 3.0 issues right now around with DRM and everything. But let's see what they got now.
Hey everybody, it's Lon Zybin. We've got another internet privacy issue to talk about today, this time involving the state of Utah. On Wednesday of this week, a new law will take effect.
It's always the Mormons. Always ruin everybody's fun. Oh, and after this video, we'll talk about the Meshtastic devices that I picked up as well. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's do that after we watch this video. I meant to do that as soon as I got back, but we got some new Meshtastic devices here I got to test out. I got to make a video about the other Meshtastic device, but what I'm going to probably end up doing is make a 2-for-1 video on these two Meshtastic devices over here, because I'm upgrading my entire Meshtastic setup.
Require websites offering adult content to verify the age of their users. This is nothing new. Texas and Florida and a number of other states have these laws on the books already. But what many adult websites do is just deny access to IPs that come from a state that requires age verification so that they don't have to worry about their liability. In the case of the Utah law,
yeah, you know how annoying this shit is? So, like, when I visit certain adult sites, for some reason, my cell phone provider, the IP can show up like it's in, like, Indiana for some reason when you do a GeoIP lookup, and they have an issue with this, so you can't access that content. So there are times when I literally have to use a VPN just to actually anchor my IP to my own state, to be able to watch content that I am legally allowed to do in my own state, because these whole GeoIP blocks are not a foolproof method, and you can sometimes get the wrong countries and people in the crossfire, because it's not like, yeah.
they're going a step further by saying that this law applies to anyone in the state of Utah, even if they're on a VPN, and they're putting the onus of figuring this out on the website operators. So the result here is that we might see some of these adult websites having to collect IDs from everyone because they want to make sure they don't get in trouble with the law in Utah. So we've got a lot to unpack here, so let's get to it. Now, before we get into this week's topic, I do want to let you know that this video is being sponsored by all of you. That includes everyone who watches and subscribes to the channel on a regular basis, along with those of you who contribute to the channel either through my donor box page at lon.tv/support, through the YouTube membership program, through Floatplane and Patreon, and of course those of you who leave us super thanks on my videos every once in a while. It all helps tremendously, and I greatly appreciate the support of all of you, because revenue on the internet can often be very unpredictable. So thank you all for your continued support.
Yeah, it definitely can be kind of fickle, which is why I'm thankful for my community too.
This issue quite extensively, not only in Utah, but in other states as well. And to their knowledge, this is the first state in the nation to target the use of a VPN to avoid legally mandated age verification gates. And we're starting to see now in other countries where free speech is restricted, how they're now also banning the use of VPNs so they can keep better track of what people are doing. Now, in this case, this is only about people accessing adult websites, but it's not a stretch here to imagine them using this law in different ways for other types of topics that might not
absolutely,
but could be something more controversial that the state doesn't want to.
You're talking about a bunch of Mormons that think coffee is bad. I mean, it ain't that much of a stretch. I mean, isn't Utah also a heavily Republican state that would probably be the type to actually not want kids to even, like, learn about sexual education? And a lot of other, like, we've already been seeing a lot of problems where Republicans have wanted to ban a lot of knowledge just because they don't agree with it on a political and or ideological basis. That's concerning. Who wants to go live in Utah? I don't know. There's some creators I know that, for whatever unknown reason, they still want to live in Utah. But yeah, I mean, yeah. You would think, like, if you were, like, if I were living in Utah, you know what my first thing would be to do? To find how I'm gonna get the hell out of Utah. Is it a pretty state? Yeah, I think it's a pretty state. Like you said, pretty state, but nope, not a place I'd live. Absolutely not, just traveling through.
Wow. And so this is one of these creeps that happens that has the EFF very concerned and other constitutional rights organizations concerned as well. But why don't we take a closer look at this law and see exactly what it is doing. So what you're going to see on screen here is some words that are stricken out. That is the old language from the law that this is adjusting. The underlying content is the new.
You like to ski, just go for a visit. Look, if I were going to pick a state to go visit, to go ski in, I'd go to Colorado over Utah. If I were, having to stay in the United States, Colorado is where I would go to ski. I would never really pick Utah.
So what Utah is saying now is that an individual is considered to be accessing the website, in this case a website with adult content, from Utah if the individual is actually located in the state, regardless of whether the individual is using a virtual private network, a proxy server, or some other means to disguise or misrepresent their location. And they're putting the onus on the website operator, not the user here. So it's going to be a requirement that every adult website have some way of knowing if the person is coming from Utah. And if they are, they have to verify their age. And the fear here is that they're going to have everybody provide an identification because the website can't figure out where everybody is physically located. So they may have to treat everybody the same here to avoid liability under this law. And there could be extensive fines for not following the law here. They also restrict these websites from advertising how to use a virtual private network or a proxy server. So this will apply only to adult websites that are covered by the law, but nonetheless, they're telling them that they are not allowed under law to post any instructions about using a virtual private network or a proxy server to come in from another state's network.
So essentially, Utah is criminalizing basic knowledge in the field of IT and cybersecurity. I want you to think about how this, the implications of this go beyond just adult content, if you would here. Would you, learning about how a VPN operates, as a professional in IT or cybersecurity, you are in college. You are learning this in college. Like, if I recall, WGU is based in Utah. Yeah, WGU is headquartered in Utah. Could WGU, from my understanding of the law as it is written, be held liable for educating students on how a VPN is used and operated? Because we need to know that knowledge when going for our cybersecurity degree for even the A+ or Network Plus certifications as part of your basic curriculum, let alone basic understandings of networking and everything. This is a can of worms that Utah, once again, does not realize what they are opening up, again, as of the result of politicians that are so completely ignorant of technology and refuse to actually consult with us professionals who are in this field day in and day out and could tell them otherwise. And what pisses me off is a lot of these politicians happen to be lawyers, and they know very well that as a lawyer, they would be telling their client to confer with them as a legal expert before going and doing many things that would cause further issues. Why can't they do that same exact piece of advice when it comes to the things that they're touching that would affect the way that we operate in modern telecommunications? Seriously. And you know what annoys me even more? Is I've reached out to several of my own politicians and extended them the offer of include me among other experts that you have when it comes into the purview of technology rights, privacy rights, digital rights. And I would do that gladly as free of charge as a civic duty to make sure that our, citizenry is not getting screwed over. But almost no politician takes up that offer. And I know many of my friends that have done the same thing. There are people in the cybersecurity community that want to do this, but politicians don't listen to us.
That's an issue. And they do define what these adult websites are. So this is not going to apply to just about anybody that's not doing adult content, but all it takes is a few changes to the law or perhaps some interpretation here to include other sites into the mix. So this is encompassing both subjective and objective looks at what porn is. So from an objective perspective, they are talking about, in the blurred section there, specifically the types of things that might appear online. But there's also a subjective component to this. If you look at section A there, it says any material that the average person applying contemporary community standards would find, taking the material as a whole and with respect to minors, is designed to appeal to or is designed to pander to the prurient interest. And by the way, if you're interested in knowing what the word prurient means, it means having, showing, or causing an unhealthy, obsessive, or morbid interest in sexual matters. So at least from a content perspective, the law is fairly narrowly focused on adult content only.
I could give you an argument to that. If sex sells in terms of advertising and it's designed to actually incur sexual thoughts, and the whole idea around that is an excessive amount, but then marketing caters to an excessive amount of sex appeal. Couldn't a simple Victoria's Secret ad fall under that? Couldn't, you're talking about like so many different things. Like, yeah, this is a very slippery slope.
But it wouldn't take much of a stretch to have the law be changed or interpreted in a way that might include other types of content, because all you have to do is get rid of the "and" down there on item B, and suddenly material taken as a whole that lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors could also get swept into this law. It's not hard to creep your way to more significant censorship. By the way, I self-censored the words that were blurred out there because they were trying to define objectively what pornography is, and it was a bit on the graphic side, so I took that out, even though it's in the actual law. I'm trying to keep my channel monetized here, but you can look at the law yourself and
right.
the words if you want. The next thing here is that this law will not apply to any bona fide news or public interest broadcast, website, video report, or event, and shall not be construed to affect the rights of a news gathering organization. So they're trying to protect some constitutional rights here. The problem is that the government is likely the one that's going to determine what constitutes a bona fide news or public interest broadcast.
Right. Again, this goes back to what I said before. This is from the state who has a party overwhelmingly running it that has determined that merely discussing LGBTQ topics is basically it's not appropriate for minors. So you're going to let a bunch of people out there determine what actually counts as this. This is going to get abused to hell. I mean, you're talking about the same party that has promoted abstinence-only sexual education that then could say children learning about their own bodies and the natural functions that they have and safe ways to actually, protect themselves from infections or, underage pregnancies and all of that could be seen as lewd and inappropriate content to a minor, according to the government of Utah, potentially. That is what we're opening it up to. The party that has supporters complaining about government overreach, BTW, pretty much.
And that's something I'm not comfortable with, but they did put it in the law at least to protect some news organizations. But who knows, if they don't like one of the news organizations, they could just say they're subject to the law and fine them for not complying. So
isn't that kind of what they're trying to do at the national level in some regard?
how do you get your age verified through this law? Well, they are going to allow a digitized identification card, taking a picture of your license. They will allow verification through third-party age verification services. So I'm sure
for fuck's sake.
A lot of them are lobbying for bills like this because they'll make a lot of money through that.
We're going to probably find out that Meta's behind this law too, aren't we?
They're also looking at any commercially reasonable method that relies on public or private transactional data to verify the age of the person attempting to access the material. So I'm assuming that would be maybe your taxes or credit card bills or something like that. And there's some other things that are defined in other portions of the law. Additionally, they grant safe harbor to these adult websites should they prove that they are complying with the law in full. However, the only way they can comply with this law in full is to ask everybody for their ID when they log in. Why is that? Well, NordVPN, one of the largest VPN providers in the world, called this a liability trap.
Not the biggest fan of NordVPN, but great that they're fighting this fight.
And said that it is technically impossible for any website in...
Most of Americans haven't even traveled to a third world country, etc. No, that's not true. America's a third world country wearing a Gucci belt. Do you think that I'm wrong on that? We kind of are. If we're in a nation where a middle class person can lose everything because they got sick, that's yeah.
Utah to block all VPN IP addresses because providers are always adding and removing addresses. There's no comprehensive block list. And of course, anybody can spin up a VPN if they wanted to. I could have all of you coming out of my house here in Connecticut if I spun something up and told you how to get to it. So it's really difficult for these websites to figure out who in Utah is using a VPN to access.
I left the country once for 4 hours. Mexico, that's the only place I ever been outside the USA. Yeah. But yeah, like,
their service and
this is how ignorant politicians are when they don't understand what a VPN actually is. And like Lana's saying, how easy it is to set up a VPN. I mean, technically speaking, I could spin one up and I could spin up one easily on my home network. Just buy a domain, set up dynamic DNS, point it to it, have WireGuard dynamically route over the domain. It'll update the IP address whenever to the dynamic DNS, and then I can always be connecting through my home network. Now, come to think of it, I should probably do that anyway at some point. Even though I decommed my old VPN, I think it's time that I got a VPN for that so I could remotely have the security of my network from anywhere, but then require TwinGate to access the resources inside the network. You see what I'm saying?
As a result, they're probably going to have to just ID everybody. And it shows you that when they create these laws, they don't really think of the technical implications of implementing them. And in fact, if you listen to what one Utah official said, you can see they didn't put much thought into this. So the Deseret News here is quoting the Department of Commerce Director Margaret Busey, who says that the law simply says you can't have minors on your platform, and so the companies are going to have to figure out the VPN problem. Now, if I was a conspiracy theorist, which I'm not, I would look at a topic we covered the other day and kind of connect it to this one. So a few weeks ago, we talked about the possibility that a California law and a Texas law could require your operating system to verify your age using your ID. A lot of you were not happy about that one, especially if it involved open source projects that presumably would have to start collecting ID cards from everybody that installed their software. And that's something California and Texas have been exploring. So think about this one. If the operating system becomes the place where you get identified, your computer will be handing out your ID wherever you go. And I think there's a lot of concern that this is where we're going to end up here by having the operating system be the verifier and basically tell everybody who you are whenever you are browsing the web. And certainly that should work. Of course, commercially, everyone is tracking us for marketing purposes, but the government shouldn't be doing it. And that is an area of significant concern, I know, for all of you. Now, what about the constitutionality of this? Well, there was a recent Supreme Court case, Free Speech Coalition versus Paxton. This was in Texas, where a bunch of organizations sued Texas over the age verification law in that state. And the Supreme Court affirmed the Texas law, saying it was constitutional, but that law didn't have a VPN carve-out. So once that law passed, all of these sites instructed people to use a VPN to access them, and that's what the Utah law is trying to shut down. As far as I know, nobody has yet challenged this Utah law. I would imagine some organization will, but they're going to have to get around what this Supreme Court case established here. I think they might be able to do that with the VPN provision here, but...
Well, yeah, because the VPN provision that they had also, barring you from educating on how to use a VPN, is a violation of free speech, especially with the fact that a VPN in and of itself is not illegal, especially at the federal level. And we've already established that code is, in fact, free speech. So I think that'll be pretty easy to get settled, is that government can't just say, no, you can't use a VPN and tell people how to use that, because the rabbit hole is so wide that it will impact legitimate VPN usage. And I'm not talking about the people that are buying apps to, you know, like Nord and Proton and Molvat and all that. I'm talking about the actual businesses setting up site-to-site VPNs, people that are using VPNs for, you know, non-things like that. Think about, like, the Tailscale users, the, you know, things like that.
It's still possible that this really could become what websites will require from users into the future. It's certainly reasonable for a financial site where you have to prove who you are because it's your money, but for just browsing content that's legal, I think that is a step too far. So we will see what happens with all of this. And of course, there's always ways that people will figure out to get around this law. Maybe some kid will steal his father's ID card to get into a porn site or something. It's not like any of this is going to be foolproof. And of course, kids are always pretty smart about finding their way around restrictions. And perhaps if they focused on ways to prevent that versus just creating laws that they don't even know how they'll enforce, I think that would be a better path to take here. But let me know what you thought down in the comments section. And until next time, this is Lon Seidman. Thanks for watching.
Oh, neat. All right.
I want you to take a good hard...
All right. So before we get finished up for the night, I wanted to show you all my new little devices here that I got. I actually just noticed that this uses the same cable as what was on my SenseCap T1000E. So what this is, these are all Mesh-tastic devices. These are decentralized off-the-grid communications devices. These ones I originally bought because they're a little bit more rugged. This is IP65 rated, and the idea around this that I bought was it's a nice everyday one, and then eventually it turned it into this will be used with my dogs. I can shove it in their vests. And this lasts, I think, a little over a day or so, I think, if I recall, with GPS on, a 700 milliampere battery in here. And this right now is the new who makes this one again? WisMesh. What do they call this one? The Tag. So this is actually the same exact hardware internally as this guy over here. However, this has a 1000 milliamp hour battery, and it's IP66 rated over IP65 rated, and it's about the same price. So it's slightly better. So it looks like it was able to turn on with that cable over there and charge, and it looks like it's the same cable. There didn't seem to be an issue with it. So basically, it's a little bit different than this guy in a couple ways I noticed. So there is a physical button on both of these, and there is, of course, a little blinking light, as you can see on both of these. But the other thing that they have is this one has, just dropped it 1 second. Ooh. But the other thing that they have is on the back, they have this additional button with a capacitive touch. And my understanding is that that is a reset button. Hold on. Let's see. So the main button, of course, power on button. And then if you get any notifications, this is how the main button is how you silence it. Same on the regular over there. The second button, the rear button, a single press resets it. A double press enters it into DFU mode, which is how you flash the device. So the USB cable is how you would charge this, how you would access this. We'll go through setting it up probably tomorrow. But yeah, I am looking at using at least 2 of these because I got 3 total. So the idea is I'm going to be programming one of these for, 2 of these for my dogs. I'll put their names on each one of these so I know which is which. And then, start figuring out how I'm going to mark which goes to which. Probably just put some nail polish on one and the other, and then figure out how I'm going to attach that to their vest. I'll have to order some vests and stuff. I was looking at some with Molly, and then one of those I was looking at keeping for myself as another device as a backup. Yitz might end up using one of these when we're at DEF CON. Just because, he doesn't have a Mesh-tastic device, and I've got several, so I may as well give him one while I walk around with my LilyGo T-Echo Plus. Although I may buy another one just for him, for kicks and giggles. We'll see. But, yeah, so this latest radio toy that is in my arsenal over here, we will be going over this probably next stream. If, I was looking at possibly being back on stream tomorrow, maybe Saturday. Sunday is gaming on Linux night, so probably wouldn't be playing with this then. But I'm curious to see how capable this device is, because spec-wise, it should be identical to this one, but a little bit better in battery life terms as well as rugged capabilities. I also did get these where are they? These holders for them. They gave me some keychain holders. I paid for all these by myself. This is not sponsored in any way, shape, or form. This is with my own money, with my own resources, so it'll be interesting to see how these work. Not sure how I will be able to test the distance on these, but I think I may do is once I get one of these set up, at least for my own purposes, I will temporarily not carry the LilyGo T Echo Plus that I've turned into my everyday carry, so I don't skew the results, and I only carry this. The reason why is because it's a mesh device. I don't want to taint the results of me taking this with me to work and going around like downtown and around the city and everything like that. It being tainted because the other mesh tasking device that has an external antenna and can definitely pick up more stuff is able to reach further, and then this device would be picking up off of one of the additional hops. So I need to test this out as its own dedicated individual device. We'll go through flashing the firmware on that and everything that, you know, was entailed with this side of things. So yeah, we will definitely be working on this. I will be planning to have a YouTube video covering this and the LilyGo T Echo Plus. I'll probably do a 2-for-1 video and cover my plans for the dogs to have their vests and everything, you know, harnessed up and all that. But yeah, anyway, are you into Hermé? Not really much of a fashion guy. I mean, my fashion sense is 5'11" and cybersecurity shirts. So new to home lab, what should I get started with? Networking. I always recommend people start out with networking. But anyway, it is about 10 o'clock right now, so it's getting a little bit late. I do have work tomorrow, even if I am working from home. So thank you all for joining me. Sorry I didn't get on stream yesterday. I was, of course, a little bit sick, but I'm feeling a little bit better now, even if I am still a little bit stuffed, and the asthma's a little bit better under control. The next official scheduled stream is Sunday. I usually get around like 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're scheduled for Sunday, Monday, and Wednesdays, usually 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But I do try to do occasional streams in the middle of the week that are extra. I'll try to do some more so we can catch up on all the other content and stuff that we have. But Sunday is a Gaming on Linux night. If I get back on stream tomorrow or even the day after, we'll definitely be poking at this. I'm gonna set them up to charge at least tonight, and yeah, so thank you all for joining me. I love all of you. Stay safe, happy hacking. If you're on Twitch, stick around for the raid. Otherwise, I will see you all later. Make sure to follow me on all of my socials. The links are in bio if you don't see them in chat. I'm on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, TikTok, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Instagram, the Discord, Matrix. We have a great Discord server and a Matrix server. You're more than welcome to join. Again, links are in bio for all of that. If you don't see them in chat, stick around for the raid. Otherwise, I will see you all later. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, or definitely Sunday, as long as I'm not sick again. See you.